The Icons of Real Estate Podcast. Are you ready to learn the proven money-making secrets from top-producing Icon agents? Ready to skyrocket your business? This podcast is for you. Tune in every week with your host, Tomasz Fonseca, and find out how to implement proven strategies to 10 times your business. From $3 million to $30 million in just 12 months. Brought to you by the Masters at Real Estate Marketing, Ardor SEO.
Welcome to the Icons of Real Estate. I'm Tim Calloway. I have a very special guest for you today from the great state of Pennsylvania. Even better if you ever got a chance to go there, Westchester, Pennsylvania, outside Philly. Mike Ciunci, and I hope I'm saying it right. I probably didn't, but I'm sure he's going to pronounce it right for us. But he's got a great story to tell, and we're looking forward to hearing it. Mike, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing well, Tim. You almost got it right for the second time. It's Ciunci, but nobody really cares. So let's be honest.
I don't know. I try. I really do. I go as far, believe it or not, as I go to an online deal to hear the pronunciation prior to, and I don't even want to tell you how they said it. And I go, you know what? That's not going to work. So
it's all good.
Yeah. So let's do this. Let's start at the beginning, man. You've got a story to tell. You've been in the business, I think about 16 years. Tell me the story. How did you start, and how did you get to where you are now?
Cool, man. Yeah. Pretty cool story. Different than most. I've been in the business about 16 years. A couple fun facts. I wouldn't say fun actually, but interesting facts. I've been with the same company ever since the very beginning. And it's the only, I guess, career I've ever had. So I got into the business right out of college. So I went from college right into real estate. So that's different, in my experience when I'm dealing with agents day in and day out. Many people, it's maybe their second, third, fourth career or a side hustle. But for me, it's all I've ever known. So I have a couple of, I do a lot of things poorly. But there's a couple of things that I know what my strengths are and a couple of small superpowers. And I guess that's one of them if you can look at it that way. So yeah, I've been in the business about 16 years right out of college, and I got in about 2006. So that's when my journey started. I was in college. I bartended through college, believe it or not. And so in the beginning of my journey, when I was bartending, there was a couple of really cool dudes that would come into my bar day in and day out. Their office was right across the street from where I bartended, and I just thought those guys were cool. I honestly had no affinity towards real estate. I didn't really know it, care about it, never bought a house. I was young. I just thought those guys looked cool. And lo and behold, it grew into a huge, huge passion of mine. And it's evolved ever since then. So 2006, I got into the business and kind of did well the first few years, better than I would say most people do in the beginning, but not as good as some. And then I hit my ceiling.
Right.
So yeah, I didn't know my worth. I didn't know a whole lot about anything. All I knew was I was good at talking to people. And that kind of gets your foot in the door, and that helps you make a living. So that's how I started. And then there's a whole other gamut after that. So that's the beginning. I don't know if you have questions from that or.
Honestly, I love hearing the initiation stories. I do have a couple of comments or questions, more or less. What was it like? And then we'll get into kind of what, maybe the meat and potatoes you kind of want to dig into. But what was it like getting your license and getting into real estate, really at a time where a lot of folks were getting their tails beaten, say around 2008? What was that journey like? I mean, was it just kind of like, wow, this is it? And was it baptism by fire?
Yeah, good question. Well, for me, I got in 2007-ish, right when the market started to go downward. I was still bartending at the time. So I did have that, side money that I could fall back on. So it wasn't like I was thrown to the fire. So honestly, that definitely helped a little bit. But I remember I was in a meeting, like just an office meeting, and one of the lenders from my office comes busting through the door, and he's like, "Countrywide just shut down," and oh my god, and just I didn't even know what that meant. I was like, "Oh,
Right.
big whoop!" Like
Right.
I don't. That doesn't matter to me. Like it felt like everybody was jumping off of a bridge, and I was over there like,
No.
I'm good. Like, I don't know if this is, it sounds bad, but I'm just learning. So why not learn at the worst of the times so that
Right.
when the market turns around, I'll be fully prepared. So that's kind of how my mindset was. I never was like, my hair was never on fire. It didn't bother me one way or the next. So that was really helpful, like kind of getting in at that particular time.
Yeah. Probably a lot of it had to do with, and this is a guess on my part, but it's also a little bit about your clientele, right? I mean, what was happening at that time, and not to bog us down in the past, but what was happening at that time were happening to a lot of people in uh, different places, in their life, and I think that had a lot to, because I talked to so many realtors and mortgage lenders that were like, I didn't even know, like you just said it, I didn't even know what was going on, right? Walking into the office, Countrywide just shut down. Well, yeah, it shut down for a reason, right? And I'm not part of that reason. So great. It's like me coming from the financial services side with real estate investment trust. Bear Stearns shut down, right? After 130 years of being on Wall Street, real estate investment trust as an investment really wasn't something anybody wanted to touch. But, it's different for everybody. So it's
Yeah,
a great
man.
time for you for sure. It sounds like you've done a great job.
Yeah. So, Tim, I kind of just got lucky where and the people that were mentoring me, they kind of a little bit led me how to think, which was cool. They taught me what I was doing right. And it wasn't a lot of X's and O's. It was more like, hey, Mike, when we would do our team meetings, I was on a team when I first started, which,
Right.
has its pros and its cons, which I was on a team for about a year. But anyhow, they were all enamored about how many people that I knew. And that was the one thing that I just knew a lot of people, which was great.
Right.
So that helped me. I wasn't necessarily very skilled or good at the business. It was just that I knew people, and I just lucked into a couple of deals my first year. And then I just kind of evolved a little bit, and I can kind of tell you how it went from there. My
Yeah.
first year, I think I sold maybe 8 homes, which to me was good. I didn't know any better. And then little by little for the next 2 or 3 years, I did more and more. And then like by my fifth year, I was doing what I thought was a really good job. So I think between year and 5 and 12, I was kind of like maxing myself out. Like I was hitting the ceiling of a certain amount of business. And for the first few years, I was like, oh, this is great. I can make a living. And it was a decent
Right.
living. But then by like year 10, 11, 12, when I'm hitting the seam every year, I'm just thinking to myself, why am I not growing? I feel like
Right.
this is it. Like, can it get any better? And I was probably like up there with the top of my office of doing business and, closing the deals, whatever. But I always
Right.
felt and here's what happened. I remember the longer I was in the business, the more referrals that were coming my way. Right.
Right.
So before, my business was structured where I was getting leads and they were just people I knew. So the business was mine. I didn't have to fight for it. It was mine. I
Right.
wasn't pitching them. I was just getting the business. Then when things turned a little bit, as you get more experience, you realize you're going to get leads from people and you don't know these people. So you're getting thrown in the fire with other realtors and you're competing, you're pitching them. So when I was pitching these guys, these sellers, I wasn't getting the business because I thought, oh, I can just charm them. I can just do this. And of
Right.
course you need to be liked, but they want to know that, hey, can you sell my house? Can you squeeze every bit of juice out of this deal? So eventually, I remember it was November 2015. I lost out on my third listing in a row, all within a month. And the
Wow.
third one, the seller never even called me back to tell me that I didn't get it, and I was just so pissed off.
Right.
And guess what? I was blaming those people. I was like,
Right.
oh, they don't know what they're missing. Nah. But
Right.
then, like, by the third person, I was like, I'm the common denominator, right? I'm what's wrong with this whole thing. I'm not doing something right. Like, I got to figure this out. So I made a commitment to myself at the end of 2015. I said, I got to change something. I know there's more. At that time, I was doing like 8 to 10 million a year, which I thought in the beginning that was a lot of money. Like I was
Right.
sustainable. I was doing fairly well. But I was leaving a lot of money on the table, and I realized I wasn't very skilled. So lo and behold, I said 2016, and this is the best thing I ever did. I said 2016, I'm going to change everything. I didn't know what that meant. I just knew that I wanted to change. I wanted to get better. I wanted to take the business more seriously. So I said, January 1st, 2016, I'm going to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning. That's what I said. And guess what? To this day, fast forward, there's not a day other than on the weekends that I don't wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
That day just changed my life. So that's that started my journey to where I am today. Right. And there's so much that is involved in that and what happens at 4 a.m.
So let's delve into a little bit of that. I mean, I don't need to get into, the egg white breakfast or anything, but I do talk to the most successful individuals, and I'm not going to say just agents, but the most successful individuals that I know. And I there's some names I've actually spent some time with that are mind blowing, and they all have that same directive. Usually they almost sound like that old army ad. We do more by 9 a.m. than most people do in a day, right? I mean, it's that day prep and that day installation that happens when no one else is around that makes all the difference. Am I right, or is that kind of what goes on with you?
You nailed it, man. You hit the bullseye there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I that's much appreciated. I think everybody needs to hear that, especially I think some of the first year, second year, or that 80% that don't make it in the industry that hit that big attrition number. So that's great to hear. Now, where you are today, let's talk about that a little bit. We kind of got the idea of how you started and really that impetus to get you to what I call next level. What's happening today in your environment? What's happening today in Westchester? How has business changed for you? Are you building a team? Where are you at individually in that space?
Yeah. I'll tell you a little bit about that. And I think where I'm most interesting is how I got to where I am.
Okay.
So this is how I'm comprised. I'm an individual agent. I have one assistant. Her name's Amy. She's a big part of my process. I hired her towards the May 2016. So right when I was flipping things around, she started working with me. And then in 2017, I hired a full-time marketing person. And that's something that in my business, at least around here, no one else has a person like this. He's actually my photographer who I hired full-time. Okay. So he's a photographer by trade. And then he's evolved into photographer / marketing person / runner. So he kind of does a lot of the stuff that I'm not good at or I don't have the time to do.
Right.
So that's my team. That's the three of us. I do all the selling. So that's the general makeup. Now, how do a lot of agents in my market, obviously I have a lot of relationships with these people, and a lot of the common questions that they ask me is, how do I do what I do with just me selling? And that's kind of the whole science of how did this happen? So back in 2016, this is all going to make sense. But back in 2016, once I made these changes and I started waking up early and I started figuring out, hey, all right, it's 4 a.m. January 1st. What the hell do I do at 4 a.m.?
Right.
And I've never been up this early in my life. Am I going to go call people? Am I going to go do it? So it's been a slow evolution of what happens at 4 a.m. But the one thing it has allowed me to do is it has allowed me to get ahead of my day. So once I started to get momentum, and there's obviously a whole story behind what it is, but once I started to get momentum, I figured, where do I invest in myself? And the one thing, there's a lot of big keys to where I got from where I was to where I am. But one thing I kind of invested in was Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
He's
my neighbor.
Yeah, yeah,
He's
in West
he's
Palm
right
Beach.
down the street.
You're right. So I started following him. I went on my first business mastery seminar. It was like a 5-day immersion, and I got one idea at that seminar. And you're going to hear me say, "Oh, it changed my life. It changed my." I say that a lot throughout, but there's so many little things that I've done that have just changed the whole trajectory of myself and my business. And one of those things that I got from Tony Robbins, he was speaking directly to me, not literally, but when I was there, it went into my ears. I'm like, he's talking to me. He said, "You cannot be everything to everybody.
That's
You
right.
know, you want to be a success, you want to find your niche, and you want to stick a knife in it." And right when he said that, I always had that kind of floating in the back of my mind. That's when I went home and I changed all the things about my business. I changed my marketing. And what I did was, and what really helped me out was the fact that I live in, I don't want to say a small town, but I live in a niche town where there's a university, there's a history to the town. So I had an opportunity to really stand out. And my town, people know each other. So what I did is I changed all my branding from Mike Ciunci to Mike Ciunci Westchester Real Estate.
Right.
Okay. Once I did that, and once I started marketing just Westchester, then I started to get traction. And it didn't take me long. It took me maybe 2 weeks to 4 weeks till I started like actually seeing results.
Wow.
So I changed my signs, I changed my business cards, I changed my video. I started doing video, just directly marketing the Westchester. And a lot of agents, and when I started doing that, they were like, "Mike," they tell me this now. They're like, "Mike, why would he do that? He's going to leave all this money on the table by the neighboring towns, and they're not going to use him because they." It was the complete opposite. The
Right.
return on the investment of me marketing to a direct niche, I started getting phone calls from people that I didn't even know. I had name recognition before, and it took a little bit of time before I got real name recognition. But once I got that name recognition, and now it's going on 7 years, I'm walking in that door. They know me, and I don't even know them. And I don't
Right.
do a whole heck of a lot, but I have a lot of clout when I walk through the door now
Yeah.
because of my niche market, and they just trust me all, right before I even walk in the door. So fast forward to today, you ask, what's your team chemical makeup and this, that, and the other. And when you do a certain amount of business, and it's like, I got other agents in my office and the surrounding offices saying, how do you do this amount of business? And it's just you.
Yeah.
It's actually easy because I don't go all these different places. I go within 1 to 2 miles of my house.
Wow.
So I keep it very streamlined. And that's very strategic on how I've developed my business. So now, like, if someone needs to see a house, I'm not going out and showing 50 homes. I'm showing maybe 1 or 2, and I'm out of the house for 30 minutes.
Wow. Yeah, that's fantastic. And that's got to obviously, in my mind, kind of being where I'm at in life, it's got to be a real blessing to have that affordable time, right? That extra time where you're not chasing the streets or I hate to say it, but showing to 25 different individuals. You can just do it right, and you're not driving across town back and forth or across the state for some folks, depending on where they are. That just adds value to the back end, the other side of your life, that's not real estate oriented. That's my thinking on that.
Tim, so yes. So it's a gift and a curse because the more I've done that, the more business I've done, which is like, all right, now so it really depends on what you want to put into it, how much time you want to, but at least it's not like where it really gives value, especially in a market that we were just in where there's 10 offers on every house. I'm coming in when I'm working with my buyer, I'm coming in with an offer and I know that agent. I know them. They're friends of mine. I already have my foot in the door. So instead of me writing 6 offers for the same buyer, I'm telling them what they need to do. I'm delivering the offer and I'm supporting it with my relationship. And if my offer isn't the best, it's going to be the best because that agent's going to come back to me and say, "Mike, you're $5,000 off. Here's what you need to do," or "I'm going to get the last look just because of the relationship I have of this little niche. I have the relationship of the agents." And so the streamline process is really just paid off, especially in the past 18 months.
Yeah. I call that, hometown advantage, right? I mean,
yes.
it just, that's what it is. And when you said it, Mike, When everybody knows who you are, when you walk in the room, you don't have to do a lot of, hey, I'm so and so, here's my card or whatever the old, you put that boots to the ground mentality to work. And I think that's what, in my opinion, my 52-year-old opinion, that a lot of, the 27 to 35-year-old agent who's just maybe getting licensed or just gotten licensed hasn't had to do that yet, right? I mean, the market's been pretty fiery. A lot of them got into the market because it was fiery or watched a lot of HGTV and, have decided I'm going to be that rock star agent. And the reality is more how Mike handles it, right? Mike gets to be known in a specific area and is real tight knit with the community, and that makes all the difference. So I applaud you for that, my friend, for sure.
Thank you, Tim.
For sure.
Yeah.
So let's talk about the future then, right? Let's time travel a little bit and put our prognostication hats on. Where does Mike want to be? And I'm not going to ask you about 5 years from now because I couldn't even tell you, in my own life where I'd be 5 years from now. But let's plot that out a little bit. What's the future look like for you?
That's a good question. I really don't know, and I haven't really thought about. I've been asked the question a lot.
Yeah.
Like the owner of my office keeps on asking me, "Hey, you're going to grow your team?" I don't plan on growing my team. I like what works for me right now is working for me, and it's worked for me for the past 7 years. Of course, if I wanted to, I have a lot of leverage between the two people that work with me, and I feel like I'm in this threshold of if I grow a little bit as far as my team, then I'm going to lose what brings me so much value
right
in the back end. So I'm very cognizant of who I work with. Like whoever's representing me isn't just going to be anyone. So if I was ever to grow my team, it would probably be a buyer's agent, but I'm not really looking for that right now. So I'm not looking to grow from that capacity. I have a 3-year-old son, so maybe when he gets a little bit older.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you very much. So maybe when he gets a little bit older, I might divvy that out a little bit, but this is what's working for me now. So again, not to digress too much, but the leads that I get now are leads that are hot leads. Like it's basically, hey, come over and list my house. Hey, Mike, here's my cousin. He needs buyer representation. Obviously you're the Westchester guy. He wants to work with you. That all is organic where I don't have to cold call. I don't have to, I do certain things that a lot of agents feel like they need to do. Don't get me wrong. I still roll my sleeves up. When I get a lead, I'm telling you, man, I'm very proactive. That's one word that I live by. It's not necessarily my mission statement, but proactivity is a pattern that I've recognized in this business where if you're proactive to your client or to another agent or to anyone you're communicating with, you're always going to have the upper hand. You're always going to have that leverage. You're always going to have your foot in the door instead of backtracking. Are you ever on a business meeting or some sort of like showing and you show up late or they're already thinking, hey, nothing good can happen of that. But if you're the one reaching out to them, if you have a listing that's not selling, and that seller's reaching out to you, hey, what's going on? You're behind the 8 ball. But when you're the one up at 4 a.m. and you're already ahead of the day and you're reaching out to your clients between 7 and 8 a.m. and you're saying, hey, this is what I'm doing, this is where I'm at. Guess what? They're not losing you. They're not leaving you. They're not going to someone else. They're sticking with you because they know that they're at the top of your mind. And that proactivity is a superpower. It's a pattern. It's something that a lot of agents take for granted. I see it all the time. When an agent gets a hot listing, and they have 10 offers in their hand, guess what? They're on top of the world. They're doing this, that, and the other. They're just going to go with the best offer. Many agents, in my experience, they don't do what they should be doing, which is communicating with all 10 agents. I know it's a lot of work, but guess what? You're going to need one of those 9 other agents at some point. So communicating to them, making them feel heard, kind of keeping them in the loop. Just because you don't need them right now doesn't mean you're not going to need them in the future. Treat everybody with respect, and when you do that, you get it back. And I'm not saying it's not easy. It's just, it takes a lot of work, but it comes back to you that's how you gain respect.
Right. That's sage advice, my friend. I love it. I love it. You know,
Yeah,
that
man.
positivity. You used the term proactive numerous times, and being proactive. And I always tell people, proactive and reactive, they're really two opposite things. And if you're being proactive, that means you're pro, meaning for being active. And then when you're reactive, that's like rewind. It's going backwards. It's when I think of reactive as running the other way, right? If something happens and you run the other way, or you can be proactive and you can be ahead of it, right? And that's where I think you're at, and that's why you're ahead of the game like that. So that's
Yeah,
awesome
man.
stuff,
You
man.
nailed it on
Awesome
that
stuff.
one.
So we're winding down a little bit. A couple of things. One, first and foremost, how can folks get in touch with you?
I mean, I have a social media. Um, I'm not, I don't, here's one thing about me. I'm not very tech savvy. I have Jeremy who works with me. He kind of handles my social media, but I mean, I'm kind of old school where I
Right.
do a lot of video,
Yeah.
but I have people helping me out. So you reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram. I mean, I don't even know what my hashtag is, to be honest with you. Um,
That's
I
all right.
just, yeah, I just kind of, I'm not on social media a whole lot other than what he does to market me. But my email, Ciunci@kw.com, or my Facebook or Instagram.
Okay. And then of course, you have the MikeCNC.com.
Correct. Yeah,
They
that's
can
my
go to the
website.
site. So I'm going to leave the last word up to you. I mean, I always like to let people have the last word. It's your show, not mine. I'm just facilitating it. Maybe there's something we didn't discuss, or that there's that favorite dog shelter you like to talk about. It's up to you. What do you have to say for us on the way out?
Cool, man. I consult with a lot of younger agents or agents in the business who struggle. Just because it's a passion of mine, I always like to give back. Not that I'm God's gift to the world by any stretch. We all have our struggles. But I've been at the bottom, and I've been, I wouldn't say at the top, but I've made a lot of progress. And the advice I give to agents is this business is an emotional roller coaster. When you're at the bottom, a lot of these agents, they bail out, but that's when you kind of discover yourself. And that's what happened with me. I just had a breakthrough. A breakthrough is a point in time when everything changes. I learned that from Tony Robbins, and I'm the prototypical person of that. That's what happened to me. January 1st, 2016, I had a breakthrough. So my advice is don't give up. Just follow people that are doing better than you and stay positive, because at the end of the day, we all go through this. I go through it. We all go through it. In order to be successful, you can't just roll into the business. You need to get skilled. You need to develop it, and just follow people, do things, be proactive, get out there, do things that other people aren't doing. Because if you just pick the low hanging fruit, you're going to do well at certain points, but then you're not going to be prepared for the future of when the market turns. So, the more I fall back on proactivity. If you can be proactive and you can be positive, you're going to do well, because if you're like that, then nothing's going to bother you. You're
Right.
just going to keep on trekking forward.
It's almost like you said at the beginning of it's your superhero ability, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it makes you impervious, invincible to the day-to-days that other 80% in the real estate world fall prey to. So
Absolutely.
it's definitely shielding yourself. Awesome stuff, man. I have enjoyed it thoroughly, and definitely would like the opportunity to catch up with you at a later date and see where you're at.
Hey, Tim.
Mike, thanks so much for being on the show, and we will talk to you soon.
Thanks for the opportunity, Tim. Talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.